He's 84 and his knees are bad and his hips are bad and his back goes out, and my mom cut him his traveling privileges off a number of years ago. But as God would have it, several weeks ago, my dad called me at my office and said, I want to go see my son. And my dad and I jumped on an airplane. Like Naila said, when my dad speaks, you jump. Gary didn't always jump, but those are other stories. They butted heads a little bit because he was a rebellious, 60s hippie guy. Don't do what they say. And my dad was a strict military, be punctual and do what I say now guy. So that was interesting. That's why I'm so meek and mild. I didn't want to go that road. Anyway, my dad and I flew out. And Gary was in Grossmont Hospital and then was moved to another place, and he had a couple fantastic days where he was very cognizant and was all there, and we were telling all kinds of stories from 30 and 40 years ago, and I was really loving on my brother. I was touching him and holding him and rubbing him and telling him I loved him, and I shaved him, and Kitty clipped his nails, and we were really loving on him and had a few great days. And a few days after we left, Kitty told us that he closed his eyes and didn't open them again. And Kitty and Rachel had went to church on Sunday and had prayed that he would be at peace and wouldn't be suffering. And the next morning they received a phone call that Gary had passed to be in a better place. So we know Gary wasn't too happy with his body. He's a big, strong, outgoing guy who liked to do stuff. And the last few years, he wasn't real mobile, so we're glad that he's in a better place, but the finality of it's been very difficult to deal with, because even though he was sick, you could still talk to him, and you could still call and talk about racing on Sundays and everything, and now we can't do that, but I still talk to him a lot anyway, and he talks to me. He told me to touch up a couple places I missed on the Corvette. I chrome polished the exhaust on the truck. I was just going around for 2 weeks doing things I thought that, he would want done, that he would be mad if they weren't done. So I don't know. He seemed to be talking to me, and I was talking to him. But
good job.
One of his friends, Ray Stockup from Casper, called me a couple days ago. And he said, Gary and I were part of a band of brothers. And he said, we lived hard, and we lived fast, and we lived on the edge. And he said, I guarantee you, Dale, that very few people went to places and did the things, some legal, some not so legal, that we did. He says, we really lived in the fast lane. He said, I said, if we wrote it all down, you wouldn't even believe it. So, and growing up in the town we grew up in, which was it was the oil boom, everyone had money. It was muscle cars, it was drag the strip, it was fist fight, it was parties, it was wild, and there were different groups of guys. There were groups of guys you didn't want to mess with. And Gary's group of friends was a group of guys you didn't want to mess with. And Lori's husband, Boyd, their group was a group you did not want to mess with. But all these cliques kind of got along, but it was a rough and tough town because it was an oil boom town, and the oil field worker guys were tough guys. So anyway, it was interesting and fun growing up with him and being around him. And it's interesting to receive that call. So I got one last thing that I want to say, and then I would like to open the floor for anyone in the immediate family or friends of Gary's to come up and say something they remember about Gary, or a way Gary touched their life, or a way he influenced them or helped them through a time. But when I first got here on Tuesday, they said I was going to stay in Gary's room. And I had cried. I don't cry a lot. I'm not a big crier. I cried a little bit when I first found out. I flew out here. I found out Monday. I flew out here Tuesday. And Katie said, oh, you're staying in Gary's room. And I walked in Gary's room, and I got extremely empty for a minute. The blood drained out of me, and I was just empty at the loss of my brother. And then I started looking around Gary's room, and I saw his watch collection. I saw all of his racing hats, his racing memorabilia, and suddenly it started to fill me from the inside out. It started just to fill me up, all his things. And why at first I thought it I didn't know if I could stay in his room. I ended up cherishing every day and night that I've been in there. And I'm wearing his cross that Kitty took from a table from him. He wore it up until the last few days he was alive, and she presented that to me. And I have one of his famed watch collections. And I've been wearing his shirts and driving his cars and talking to him the whole time. While I go around doing things around the house that I thought maybe he would want me to do. So that's been my experience, and I thank all of you so much for coming. And I'm going to open the floor, and then we'll have something to eat. And here comes Kitty. And would like the family members and then any of the friends to say anything. You want to eat? You want to talk later?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to eat now, and then
Open up later.
we'll open the floor later to those things. So thank you so much for being here. God bless you, Gary3.